Hey everybody, this is Jordan, Crohn's veteran. Welcome to the Crohn's Veteran Podcast. I am joined by my two amazing co-hosts, CJ Cabrera and Renika Wood. How you guys doing today?
Fine, how are
Doing all
you?
right.
Doing well, doing well. And today we are grateful and honored to have our guest Leana today with us. How you doing today?
Doing good. Thank you guys.
Um, there's a little bit of feedback there, but it's okay. And so, but yeah, so, well, again, welcome. And, and first things first, for the people out there that don't know who you are, would you mind, sharing your story with Crohn's?
Of course. So it's been a long time. I was born in California. Me and my parents moved to Puerto Rico in 2001, towards the end. When we had gotten there, I was showing a lot of symptoms, but it took, fast forward 6 months of like going to doctors and saying, well, it's this, it might be this, it might be that. I think one day my mom took me to the ER and was like, I'm not going to let, to go before she's diagnosed with something because it had gotten so bad. Like I didn't want to eat. That's how bad it got in. And I was telling CJ I was diagnosed in Puerto Rico, and it was an experience. I woke up in the middle of the colonoscopy.
Oh no.
It was very traumatic. I remember waking up and feeling so much pain in my stomach, and I was trying to hold. They're like, "Don't touch it; it's gonna like pop, basically." And so I guess they put more anesthesia or whatever the case may be, and I went down and they were like, yeah, you have Crohn's. And this is back in 2002. Like this wasn't even on the radar of anything. And there wasn't even much on there. And my mom was like, what do we do? What is this? And they were like, we don't know much, but she has to go on this extreme diet and she has to take steroids, or if you don't want to take the steroids, there's this new medication that hit the market about a year ago called Remicade. And my mom was like so anti, like, well, no, I'm not gonna, put her on a biologic that just came onto the market or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was officially diagnosed, but it was rough, like 10 years old, and the diet that they gave me was gluten-free, wheat-free, like everything free.
Yeah.
I remember I couldn't even have vinegar, and couldn't have dairy, couldn't have just anything with wheat or gluten in it, which is, I mean, you look at everything you consume and it's like
It has wheat and
Yeah.
gluten in it.
yeah, everything. You're like, wait, what? Can I drink water? No. So I remember the only thing that I could have was basically vegetables, like obviously steamed, not raw, rice, potatoes, meat, salads. And it was so sad because I remember as a little kid going to these parties, having pizza and all this other things. And I had to bring my own food so that I was able to eat. I had to bring my own food into restaurants so that they could prepare something that I can actually have. Because I remember only having to have the gluten-free potatoes. Like I couldn't even have regular potatoes because they had to be, it was all that. And thank God, like fast forward 4 years, I came back to the States. But this time it was to the DC area. And that was a culture shock in itself because you're talking about someone from California. Diverse, like melting pot, everything, bam, to Puerto Rico. Technically, like I grew up with my Puerto Rican family, and I'm also mixed with German. And even though we're, from the culture, it's totally, East and West, like totally different than what you expected, which was, again, hindsight a blessing, but the healthcare system over there, we didn't know how bad it was until, we got here. And it was just crazy because I went to John Hopkins, thank God, that was a blessing. John Hopkins Pediatrics, shout out to them. To this day, I cannot get the best experience, with my disease till then. I don't know if you guys heard Dr. Olivia Hemker. She was actually like my primary, which was cool to say, and I still love her to this day. And she, had a consultation, and she's like, oh my God, what do you mean they have you on Asacol and what was it, Medrol and all these other things for 3 years? Because I was so young, they were very concerned that I was on steroids for that long, that there was going to be like growth issues or some stunt of some kind, or even with my bones. So I got a bone density right away. And thank God everything's fine.
Yep.
But they immediately took me off. They immediately said, there's no correlation that we can find between diet and actually causing the disease, not so much triggering it, but causing it. Yes, you're going to have triggers. But that like totally blew my life, because I went from having nothing to like now eating everything in sight. And funny enough, dairy didn't affect me. Like I was not lactose intolerant. Ever. And when they finally put me on Remicade, that was my first medication coming to the States, I was on remission for 5 years. Like it was miraculous. And I loved it because you only have to go every other month. You don't have to inject yourself like someone else is doing it. And I had very little side effects. Like it was just, aches and pains and joint pain and maybe headaches here and there, but it was never significant side effects to the point where, I was like, oh no, I'm not going to be on this. And I think, so thank God I was through middle school, through high school, I was in remission. I would have hiccups here and there, but it was nothing that a little bit of diet or a little bit of water, a little bit of exercise couldn't help. But then I had my first surgery in 2010, and it wasn't an emergency. It wasn't like you need to have this. You need to have it like within the year, but it wasn't like a concern. And the only reason Hopkins wanted to do that was because there was so much scar tissue and so much damage throughout what I think at that point was 8 years to 2010, like 8 years of damage from all these inflammations that they're like, we need to cut it. So they cut the ileum out, because that at that time, that's where all my active disease was, at the ileum. So they cut it out. And the actual surgery was great. Like, I was like, this is it. I was walking that night. I was like, this is great. And they sent me like home, I think a day later.
Oh, wow.
Because it was easy peasy. I was like, I could do this again if I need be. But no, I joke. But what happened? It was fine until a week later, where I guess they did very old school. I think they did like staples or some, like, it looked very like archaic. And it started getting infected, and that was crazy. It was like I don't know if you ever had it. I've never seen anything like it. It was almost like an exorcist.
Actually, I can speak firsthand because I had my ileum removed also, and I had the same staples all the way down the front of my stomach also.
And unfortunately, I got infected, and I had to go to the ER, and they actually had to open like almost halfway of the incisions, and they're like, we're not going to close it up. And I was like, me and my mom looked at each other like, what do you mean you're not going to close it up? They're like, if we close it up, this is going to happen again. Because there's so much layers between the skin and the fat and to where your sac is, where your intestines hold, to everything, that it's just going to happen again. So we're just going to have it naturally healed. So 2010 was the senior year of my high school, and it was a bad in the middle, like we're 2 months away from graduating, and I had to go back with basically a hole in my abdomen. So that was a whole experience in itself. But thank God it actually healed, and it was an experience. It was very impactful on my men. Like as females, you want to wear the 2-piece, especially at your 18 years old and all that stuff. But then you have this, vertical scar just like right there. And unfortunately, because of the way it healed, there was just like a big chunk. It almost looked like I had 2 belly buttons. But eventually, with the support of my family, got pushed forward and all that remission, until I was like, you know what, I want to go to art school. I don't know why they did that. I was like, I want to go to graphic design and be in art school. Let me go back to my homeland, to California, to where it all started, and and be with my family, and because it's been so long away from them. So I went, and that was the time that, well, it's still the end of 2010, but the big salmonella outbreak in the eggs hit.
Mm-hmm.
And guess who was that one person who, yes, that one person who got salmonella poisoning.
Oh no.
And but we didn't know, like we ate probably on a Sunday, and because I was already kind of in a flare, I didn't really know the differences until like day after day after day it got worse. But again, I was due for my Remicade infusion, and I knew I had a little bit of flare, so I was like, oh, this is just the flare getting worse. But I remember just having fever and sweating and all that stuff. Again, same symptoms as Crohn's, abdominal pain and all that wonderful stuff. And I ended up passing out in the shower twice, and crazy experience in itself. We finally got to the ER, and after tests, they were like, well, one, your blood count is like, I don't know how you're still walking. I don't know how you're still up, because it's like zero. It's almost depleted. Like you have been losing blood internally like for a while now. And I was like, what?
Oh,
and
no.
and then so they finally hit me with the salmonella diagnosis. But it took, I don't know why the testing took so long. And for some reason, I bring that experience up because it triggered my disease so bad that even months later that I finally was salmonella free and all that stuff, I was still not doing good, like at all. I was like a stick, like very white, pale, had no energy to do anything, just wanted to sleep. And so they, I guess, took another look into me, because it was another time where I was like, no, you guys have to find something. And I think my doctor took one look at me, or like, we're going to admit you. And finally, through all the colonoscopy and the test and all that stuff, they were like, we need to do another surgery. Like your transverse colon is so shot that it's just like no good. We need to do it. The scariest part of that was, you put your trust in doctors and their knowledge and things like that. But I had a horrible experience with one doctor, because he said that basically he's like, surgery is not going to cure anything. It's not going to be your saving grace. And I was just like, you think I want? So basically he was insinuating that I wanted surgery and that this was going to be my cure. And I was just like, no, who wants surgery? Like, who wants to go through that pain? Like, I'm actually going through something you get. And now finally a tests are saying that it's no good. But I think they wanted to save my intestines so much that they wanted to kind of, I don't know. I was getting, I had 3 doctors on the team. So one doctor gave me that pep talk by him, like one-on-one, saying, this is not going to be your cure. Like, why do you want to be here? To the other doctors was like, you know what, you really need this. So it was kind of confusing and experience in itself there. But the surgeon, what scared me about that one, the surgeon was like, I don't know if you're going to wake up with a bag or not. And I was like, wait, what? He's like, we can't, we could see so much on MRI, we could see so much on a CT scan, but we don't really know what it looks like until we dive in there and I go inch by inch of the intestines to see what's good versus what's not good. And he's like, and the way that the colon is it goes the ascendant, transverse, descendant colon, the way it's going, I don't know if I can hook it up. It's not meant to hook up. It's meant to go boop, boop, boop. It's not meant to go hook up like this.
Right.
I don't know if I could do it. And I was like, oh my God.
Sorry, I got a question.
No, of course.
Was the surgery the J pouch or?
No, well, the surgery was meant to just take out sections of my colon. But what he was saying, because of the way that the colon is physically actually set up, he didn't know if he could connect it and it would work. That's what he taught. I was like, okay. And he was, again, I was 18 years old at that point. He was probably using layman terms with me. But I didn't, again, I was like, but you hear that. That was the first time I ever heard that someone might give me a bag. And I think that's the one thing with someone with no bag is like, that's your fear. Because
It is.
your life turns upside down the minute that you got Crohn's or you were diagnosed with it, right? Like you go through like the stages of grief almost, because it's like you're saying goodbye to life you once. Now it's going to be totally different. But for someone to tell you, oh no, it's not going to be like way different from that. And I was like, this is already good. It is. I don't need anything else. And again, at 18 years old, that's pretty like mentally impactful. So
well, thank you for that, story. It's, I think, a lot of folks, it's really interesting hearing you tell your story, just because I, how much I personally can relate to a lot of it. And so, so thank you for that. And I know that Renika has something on her mind that she wanted to ask you too.
Oh, yes. Please.
Definitely. I know you mentioned something you said at the very end of your conversation. You mentioned about the stages of grief. When I first did my podcast over here with Crohn's veteran, I did actually a podcast about the stages of grief and grieving my old self from prior to me having Crohn's and having all these difficult surgeries and having the difficult transition of making a decision of me wanting to get better or me wanting to get worse. And when you mentioned the stage of grief, because I actually did have to have a surgery, I have a leukostomy, and where I was I was against the surgery for like a year, but each day I was getting significantly worse and worse and worse and worse. So I think that when it comes down to, and it's a big part of my life now, down to getting an ileostomy or colostomy, the thing that we focus on mostly is how would I be affected by this? How would my quality of life improve? Or what would people view, how would I be viewed amongst people around me? But I can say this to you, once I got my surgery, my quality of life significantly improved. I had to get out of my own head and remove how I thought people would perceive me as if it was me perceiving them. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
Because back in the day, they had that old schools that I saw one guy, he had a bag about this big. I was like, oh my God, I would never do that. I was young. But now technology is so advanced these days, and the bag's about this big, man. It's just awesome. But I do understand you say that grief part is big because I went through that a lot. And it can be very, very, very scary. Being a female as well, it can be very scary. So I want to thank you for sharing that part because it really hit home to me. I was like, oh, I think I don't know.
No, of course. No, yeah. And I was telling CJ, because I was 10 years old diagnosed, you would think that I could tell you all the tips and tricks, but I could some, but I grew up with horrible habits, and a lot of it was mental. Like, and when I say horrible habits, again, my parents did the best they could. We had only a little bit of knowledge, no support, no one that we knew with anything even coming close to this. Right. So my mom had this mentality, is like, you're gonna have this for the rest of your life, so suck it up. And so that was, and two, it was always, don't tell anybody about it. And in those couple things, like to this day, stick with me. But it's horrible. And I was like, wait, why not tell anybody? Like, why am I ashamed of this? I'm not. This is, something different, but this is a part, and the whole, suck it up thing is like I have tough love kind of deal, but it's not healthy. Like, so I learned all these not healthy habits, like not to the point where I hide it so well. I'm a master. I could be having a pain right now and you wouldn't know it. And now I don't tell people until it's like bad. I'm like, okay, no, it's bad, but it's a horrible habit. You shouldn't hide it, and you shouldn't be suffering alone,
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that, because that sounds, wow. This is really, really interesting talking to you. I mean, because I think about myself, and I hide my stuff really well too. I've been in so many situations, at jobs and stuff, and to where just customer facing and all these things, and my own family. Well, at jobs, people just, nobody cares. You have to cover it up. You got to talk. And then, I actually told my job maybe that I had Crohn's. I did all the stuff with the ADA. I got an accommodation, and I don't know, 8 months later, I'm out of a job, doing that. And then I think, and then my parents, I was diagnosed when I was 14. And so and then I had my surgery, and then after that, I was kind of, symptom free. And so I kind of felt like, I think everybody just kind of forgot that, that I had Crohn's until,
Yeah. And sometimes I forget. I think when I'm in actual remit, it took so long in the last 2 years, not so much, but when I was in years of remission, I forgot. I'm like, I'm normal. I could do normal things. I can eat everything I want. And then it starts hitting you and you're like, wait.
I forgot.
Yeah, I forgot. Or you're trying to outrun your friend. You're like, whoa, my spine is on fire and my stomach feels like it wants to come out. So I forgot. So you forget kind of yourself until you're like, no.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Jordan.
No, Renika, go ahead.
Okay. What I was going to say was that this just shows us how important it is to have a strong mental health. Because when our mental health is weak, or when it's always, it's always challenged, we tend to challenge ourselves, and we can be in pain and be so afraid to share because of our own insecurities. I know for me personally, I'm speaking to myself as I say this. I went out with friends this weekend. Some friends who I didn't know. I knew one person out of a bunch of about 14 or 15. And the goal was I had a great time. But my mind still was like, what happens if I go to the restroom, I have to change, whatever? Do I do this? Do I say stop the bus and go? I had the insecurity in my head, but the same token, I had to get out of my own head. Even me now, I have a difficult time sharing certain things, but I've learned that the more open I am, someone can help me versus I can help myself, because my secrets can keep me sick. I feel like the only time I call 911 is when I'm laid out and I can't get up.
Right.
But I did that one time. And when I got to the hospital, he said, he had my blood drawn. He said, Miss Wood, you better go ahead and get comfortable. You're not going home no time soon. I said, it's Super Bowl weekend. I got to go watch the game. I was in the hospital for 10 days. I had every kind of infection you can name. I went in, got out. I was in there all through Valentine's Day. I was there for 10 days because I thought that would get better. I was getting worse and worse. Blood low, anemia, potassium low, calcium low, dehydration, vitamin deficiency, blood and stool, I was about 15 pounds. It was crazy because I was so afraid to share, because I felt like I was always a sick one, but be very mindful that if you don't feel a certain way, don't wait till the last minute.
No. Yeah, for sure. And don't be afraid to share, because they won't know. Exactly. And I'm so glad. I think I was saying I haven't reached out to the IBD community until the last couple of years, and it's opened my mind. My God, first of all, there's people who know. Right. you know, I don't have to explain to you. I don't have to be no, this is how it works, and do a little chart.
Diagram.
And I don't have to explain, no, this is how it feels. You don't understand. And it's been helping my confidence. And like you said, you can't care what people think. Some people think you just got to be yourself and do best what's healthy for your mind and for your body. Because they're all interconnected. Because going back to mental health, not only mental health, but I feel stress, it all has to do with it. It triggers the disease too. And I think that's what I'm struggling with now, because I'm trying to be normal and do all these stuff and kind of spread myself thin and trying to push. I'm so guilty of pushing myself to my limits and be what can I do physically? And then I get hit. And then the stress of normal life plus Crohn's life plus this, it triggers it even more. And
right. I think you're talking to a friendly crowd over here about that.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I actually had a little episode dealing with stress this weekend. At the end of the night, I was coming home from a party, and then all the stress went straight to my stomach. And as soon as I got home, it was just pain, and it triggered other systems, and I started bleeding. Started bleeding a lot. And then the next day, I was out of commission. I was literally asleep all day.
Body probably drained.
Yeah, I was freaking fatigued out of my mind.
That's scary. Though. Isn't that
Stress
scary?
is a real thing, man.
It is. You know, and so I mean, yeah. So I mean, so that's kind of Crohn's veteran. One of our biggest pushes is mindfulness. You know, and just the kind of just making sure that even if you're trying to take care of your physical problems and stuff like that, but trying to make sure that your mental is good. And that's just having just having mental issues with Crohn's is so common, and I think that that part of the awareness needs to be pushed out. I know a lot more, just letting people know that having a stomach ache or worrying about going to the hospital again, that can just do a number on you. It's still even me too. Like it's to me, pitting out positivity and being positive is an intentional act when you have these kind of conditions and stuff. And so yeah, so bravo to you. So for just being positive yourself, Leanna. I appreciate it too.
Thank you for that. I think that's one of the things I definitely have learned with Crohn's. It's taught you don't take the little things for granted. Life is so fragile, and it's made me feel even grateful because I've heard other stories and I'm like, I thought I was bad. Like, because again, I've met a couple of people in my life, 5-second degree of separation or how they call it, but I thought I was like, no, because my doctor's like, you have an aggressive form and you have to do this, until I met other people and I was like, wow, like you have to be grateful. And now you have other family and friends that you can connect to. That's definitely one of the biggest. Reach out. Don't be afraid. It's social media, just text or anything like that. And I don't think if I didn't have Crohn's, I would meet people from like the UK and Ireland and Canada. And you're just like, whoa, I'm really not alone. Because you feel alone in your own bubble, maybe, because you have no one that knows it. Your family says they understand, but they don't understand. Or you might going through your struggles, but you're not alone in it. Definitely reach out. And if you're feeling anything, that's the moment that you reach out to them.
Exactly. And for guys as well, like we have to do a better job at, handling our emotions, even showing it, like a lot of us like to keep it down and so it
internalize it until it blows up.
And so there's no shame in seeing a therapist if you're a guy or a girl or any of that kind of stuff. That's why like we have a good friend named George, and so and he told us that the 3 things with Crohn's or IBD is finding a good therapist, finding a good diet, and finding a love for cooking. And so he said those 3 things will help you. But with that, Leana, I think we're gonna wrap things up here a little bit. So how can people find you? And also, is there anything any last thoughts that you'd like to share with with the people out there? And how can people find you and all those kind of good things?
Definitely on Instagram at Life and Leana G. And I'm, again, like, start sharing, because I think the thing that those horrible habits that I've learned is that when you don't share, like, that confidence and mental thing, I'll definitely start to impact you. Because I think the picture that I actually showed my scar on social media was so liberating. And I'm like, why didn't I show this, like, years ago and not hide it and be proud of it? And because not a lot of people can say that they deal with this and they're still positive and they're still going and they still, even though we have our days, but there will always be a remission out there for us.
Right. And this scar do mean you are a warrior and you've been through something, because when they say most warriors get battle wounds, what they say?
Yeah. And back in the day, and back in the day, we're talking about tribal days, they actually were proud of their scars. They're like, look at my scar, look what I did.
Some people brand themselves too.
Yeah.
So we really have to change that in 2020. Be proud of those flaws, because
Right.
beauty is imperfection.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I mean,
Definitely.
I just posted like like my scar yesterday or something. I was kind of
Oh, Jordan.
it's really funny. It's so funny that she's saying this stuff because I'm like, wow, because like I have like 2 pictures out of like 108 like 90 some things post on Instagram. I got like 1 or 2 of my actual scars. So I got to do that more too. Because people don't know what you don't show type thing. And so
Exactly, because they don't see it. Exactly.
yeah, right. Well, cool. Well, for everybody. Well, again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Oh, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, we
Oh, I know. Finally meet you in time.
Right,
It's
right.
So
For anybody out there that wants to check out this episode, we're on Anchor, we're on Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Apple Podcasts. This will be on YouTube also. You can check out our website at www.crohnsveteran.com. We have an awesome merch store at Teespring. We're on Twitch, Chill Ghost, all kind of fun things. We actually we're doing a tournament also. For esports, Madden. So so get your sticks out, all that. And so, but we appreciate again your time, Leana, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, thank you guys. You too.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.